We have Maria with us today, and I'm super, super excited to chat with you. So I would love for you to just start off by telling your story, what allergies you have, how you got diagnosed, and then what it's like to live with them today.
Yes, I am Maria, and I am allergic to chicken, turkey, wheat, gluten, dairy, peas, eggs, tree nuts, peanuts, and shellfish. And I was diagnosed with those allergies when I was about 6 or 7 months old. So it was more of a transition for my parents than for anyone, than for me, because I was so little. So really, that's all that I've known. When I was diagnosed, obviously, I got allergy tested, and my parents had to do a lot of research. My mom is a dietitian, so it was a little bit of an advantage there for her. And so she did a lot of research and found some foods that I could eat. She had to change her diet a little bit too. And as I've grown up, it has been a little hard, especially going out with friends. There's a little bit more planning that goes into it than for others. I've always had to be careful around people when they're eating, always taking extra precautions anywhere I go, was packing foods with me and making sure I always have my EpiPens. And that's always been how I've had to live as I grow up. Having parents that have helped me through it is really great, especially having so many allergies, and all my friends and family, they understand and they help me, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is really good that you're able to have that support system because that's super important. It's always hard when you don't have other people around you that understand. Are you anaphylaxis to all of them or only a few of them?
Yes, all of them. I mainly like dairy and gluten are probably the top two, and the nuts. Um, Peas are probably maybe the least severe, I guess, out of all of them, but yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really hard. So, talking about lifestyle, going out to social events, eating out, what is that like for you to have so many allergies and have other people making food for you?
It is a lot of preparing. There are only certain places where I do have them make food for me. So most of the times if I'm going out to eat, I normally just bring like my own food and a cooler. So we prepare about 30 minutes to an hour before we leave anywhere just to make food for me. There are some restaurants where, usually like steakhouses, where I can go and get a steak and a sweet potato and broccoli. But again, that comes with a lot of instructions to the staff there, and it can be very nerve-wracking, causing a little anxiety when I do trust other people to take care of my food. But for the most part, it's planning, planning, and planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And how sensitive are you to that cross contact?
Pretty sensitive. It'll start with like my mouth itching. Um, and a lot of times we have to look out for that before I eat anything. I always have my sisters or my parents or whoever I'm with try a tiny bit of mine to make sure there's no butter or anything on it that they could spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes you can tell right away, but a lot
Mhm.
of times it's like hidden in. How often would you say you bring food to restaurants versus you trust them and just give instructions?
Probably about 85% of the time is when I would bring my own.
Got it. That's crazy. Given that, if there was a resource, and that's what we're working on with MacroMenu, to be able to understand a restaurant's cross contact procedures in advance and also know what they have on the menu that's available to the top 8 allergens, what would that be like for you, or how would that change your eating out experience?
If I had an app like that, that would be huge because I think it would allow a lot of stress and anxiety to ease a little bit. Um, and then knowing that I'm taking care of in the part of like explaining a lot of things and them knowing the top 8 allergens, it would be a lot peaceful and less stressful to go out to eat. Probably I wouldn't have to bring all of my food all like majority of the time if that were possible. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does that make you feel that you have to bring that food? Because I'm sure you're used to it by now, but it's like we shouldn't ignore the emotional burden of it.
It's definitely hard. Again, I'm kind of used to it, but I still get stares at other people every once in a while. I'll notice, or it's hard like being that person out of all my friends that has to bring their own foods, or sometimes even suggesting a different restaurant because of the environment there might not be the best fit for me. um, it's hard. I wish that it could be easier and I could just go out on the whim and go out to eat with friends and not have to plan before. um, but I am used to it, so it's, I guess that helps a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And did your parents ever take you out when you were a kid, or did they kind of just avoid it until you were a little bit older?
For the most part, they avoided it because when I was younger, I was even more sensitive, especially like my skin, and going into places, I would become all itchy, and so it was just safest to stay at home.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Well, do you have any final last thoughts on like what your experience has been growing up with allergies? Any advice that you have, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, but it is a little bit overcoming. It will be hard at first finding new foods, changing a diet, um, making sure your home is safe for your kid or for yourself who has allergies. But you'll find different resources, maybe some tips and tricks from others, and you'll grow from it. You'll be more independent as a kid. I know I feel like I'm pretty independent with it all because I've grown up with it for so long. Um, it's tough, but you will get through it. You'll learn about different brands that you would never know of and that are actually really good. So as there are some drawbacks, there's also some positives to it as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely agree with that because I wasn't diagnosed when I was that young, but I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old. So I grew up with it. And it's definitely a little bit better to have it as a child because you kind of just grow up like knowing about it versus
Yeah.
diagnosed when you're older. And then you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. Then everything has to change. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I really appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of people will be relieved from hearing your story.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course.